The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
In Fairfield County, something new comes across my desk every day. Crimes are committed, cases are solved, and a community is made safe by the hardworking employees of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office. Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phelan, a weekly program here on LSN Television. We're also carried by a number of the radio affiliates here in Lancaster. Do appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us each and every week. And certainly we couldn't do this program without the help of Fairfield Christian Academy, the students who are behind the scenes, our executive producer, Kelly Roberts, lining up the guests, getting the questions together, and does a terrific job behind the scenes. We got a great guest, Deputy TJ Strawn, good to see you.
Sheriff, good to see you.
And you were on, but it's been what, 2012 was the last time, right?
Summer of 2012. It's been a minute.
So, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself with the Sheriff's Office. What your career has been like.
Well, it's been a fun career. I've started my 16th year full time.
Well, congratulations.
It's an exciting job. I am assigned to work with our Job and Family Services division. Prior to that, I've worked the jail, I've worked our communications center, I've worked patrol, pretty much just about everything but the detective bureau I've done so far. I'm also on our department SWAT team. Right, and that's that in and of itself is an important part of your responsibility. There's a lot of extra responsibility that comes to it.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you do with Job and Family Service in the Child Support Division.
I currently, I'm assigned, like I said, with the child support. My main goal or main objective is to go out. I serve warrants, papers. Sometimes security is needed in the building for hearings. Pretty much whatever they need, I do it for them.
Okay.
My caseload consists of, I have roughly about 250 warrants, 225, somewhere around that number. Scattered all over the country, really. Majority of them are in Central Ohio area. I do have some, that are out of state, not a lot of them. I serve papers, that'd be contempt papers, if need be, to get people into court or bring them in for genetic testing, whatever that may be.
Well, that's interesting. You bring them in for genetic testing?
Bring them in for, sometimes you do have to bring them in for genetic testing for legality reasons or some other reasons sometimes too.
Develop or determine who the parent is.
Develop parentage to see who the mom or dad.
Wow. So some of your responsibilities, as you mentioned, is serving arrest warrants for people that are behind on their child support?
I do. The arrest warrants, typically, sometimes they're the contempt of court, the civil warrants, or sometimes the criminal, which can be anything from misdemeanor all the way up to the felonies.
Wow. So you see a lot of different dynamics. You're in the courtroom a lot as part of that?
I am in the courtroom. They do house a courtroom in the Job and Family Building, their child support. I sit in on some of those if there's maybe a protection order involved, or sometimes there may be there was a violence or a previous violence, they're going through a divorce. So if there's a need for me to be in there, then I sit in on those hearings also. And also not just for the actual court hearing, but sometimes I have to sit in on the paternity test result hearing also.
Yeah, that's got to be very difficult for all parties involved.
Sometimes it is, depending on the circumstances. There's some not so good circumstances. So sometimes it can get a little interesting in there.
Yeah, I bet you see a lot of sad situations with the kids involved too.
You see a lot, you do, yes.
So at what point does an individual get an arrest warrant issued for them? At what point, how far do they have to be behind on their child support payments before there is a warrant issued?
Technically, by law, you can miss one payment and you can be in contempt of court. There's not a set balance as far as money goes. So a lot of times what they'll do is if a parent, a mom or dad, whoever is receiving the child support monies, does not receive payments after, it can go a month, sometimes it can go a lot longer than that. They will contact their caseworkers, or a lot of times the caseworkers will pick up the case, will catch on that the payments haven't been made. So what they'll try to do typically is file a contempt of court proceeding. So that's where, when I explained earlier that I serve papers.
Okay.
I will go out, or they have process servers. There's a couple of local people here that serve them also. Try to bring them into court and get an idea of what's going on as to why they're not paying, whether they've just simply lost a job, they're not working, or sometimes things change where they had to change jobs. Now maybe they're not making as much money or something of that nature.
I was surprised, we talked before airtime about some of the amounts of money that people are actually behind on their child support payments.
Some of the arrearages I've seen as low as, at a few $1,000s, all the way up to six figures, $120,000, $150,000.
Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Now, what percent of these individuals are actually trying to avoid you when you're looking for them?
At first, a lot of them, they do try to avoid you.
Okay.
And I try to explain to them. So if I go out, I try to serve a contempt paper to bring them into court. Somebody at may also will answer the door. I have to personally serve them this paper. I can't serve it to a mom or dad or somebody else. I have to serve them. So I try to explain to them, it's easier if they just cooperate and let me give them these papers and then bring them in that way. Because a lot of times if I don't get them served, or the process servers don't get them served, then they issue a warrant for them. So it's easier to come in on your own time versus
right.
Taking the chance of being placed in handcuffs and then taken over before a judge that way.
And at what point does say someone's out there today, whether it's a male or female, and the other party has fallen behind on their child support, procedurally, how do they get this into the system?
A lot of times you contact your caseworker down at Job and Family. The caseworkers also will try to monitor a lot of cases. Their caseload down there is unbelievable. The amount of caseworkers versus the actual cases. So if it's something that maybe the caseworker hasn't caught up on, I always tell them, or I've had people approach me in public, I would say you need to contact them to try to basically get the ball rolling, to get started on getting them into court or to figure out what's going on to help you get your child support payments.
And in a given year, how many arrest warrants will you actually serve or attempt to serve?
On average, I serve, this year it was about 150 arrests I actually made. In years past, I've made as many as 300, I believe, is the highest. So it just depends on availability for me a lot of times,
right.
Of being able to serve them, or sometimes it's just a matter of pure luck. You're able to get them easily or you're not. So roughly, 150 to 300 warrants a year, and I know I probably knock on 200 to 400 doors a year trying to pick people up.
Wow. And so when you're out looking for these, so a typical day, sometimes you're in the courtroom, and sometimes you're just providing, if they think there's going to be some kind of problem within the building, you also take care of that, won't you?
If there is a problem, inside the government building down there, it lodges the prosecutor's office or EMA, Child Protective Services. I don't get a lot of calls for them, but there are times that they need me to, they have an issue with somebody, or I try to, on a daily basis, just make my presence known and just walk the building.
You've been there doing this for 6 years.
6 years. Yeah.
Has the economy had any effect on, like we went through a rough time in 2008, 2009. Did you see an increase during that time period with people behind on their child support, or has it been pretty even throughout the years?
I think it's been pretty even. And I find that maybe and I could be wrong, but maybe the economy doesn't have a lot to do with people paying their support. A lot of times it's just, they just simply don't pay it.
Yeah, and a lot of child support is actually deducted from payroll, right?
It's right from payroll. They will, once a establishment or an order is established, they'll send out to your employer to have the monies come in. Sometimes it doesn't always happen. You get somebody that is maybe an under-the-table worker, construction or something like that, then it's tough sometimes to get them to, they have to come in and pay it on their own. And
what is the penalty for someone that does not pay their child support?
It could range anything from contempt of court proceedings to actual jail time.
Okay. And some are misdemeanors, some are felonies. So how does that work?
Some are misdemeanors. Like I said, they'll try to bring you in the contempt of court, the civil actions. They'll bring you in this way to try to get you in. They'll work with you as far as trying to get you to find, if you need help finding work, or to whatever it is to help you get the money's coming in. And if sometimes that doesn't work, or if we're not able to get them these papers served to bring them in, then they have to file an actual criminal non-support charge. It's basically, it falls under the child neglect section. And then they will, it's a criminal charge that actually can go on your record.
Okay.
And then they'll bring you in this way before a judge. So then they take this route. Well, if the criminal sometimes doesn't work, then there's another step to the law that they can indict you on a felony.
Wow. And so men versus women, that was something we talked about before airtime, as far as the offenders. And I think typically, historically, we think of men, by and large, paying child support. And but that dynamic's different too, isn't it?
The majority of it is men, but there
Okay.
are women.
Okay.
I would say my caseload with warrants is probably 70% men, and then 30% of it's probably women.
I think that would surprise people. I wouldn't have thought it was that high, 30%.
It's up there.
Wow.
So.
Wow. With us today is TJ Strawn, and with Job and Family Services. But you're actually an employee of the Sheriff's Office, but you're kind of assigned down there, right?
I am. I am employed under the umbrella, through the Sheriff's Office with Job and Family Services. As you mentioned, also we talked earlier before the start of the show that Job and Family actually is getting a full-time deputy.
Right.
In their building. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's going to be here hopefully in the next month or two. So that's going to free me up, I feel, a lot more to be able to go out and actually
Go out and be out there serving warrants.
Yes.
and doing
It's going to free me to do a lot more. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we're going to have you back next week because, as you mentioned at the beginning of the program, you are a SWAT member.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the SWAT. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the in-service training that you're involved in, and a lot of good things next week.
Looking forward to that.
Coming up. So you got a lot of medals there.
Well, it's accommodation medals.
Okay.
Guys at work kind of joke around with some of us that wear them that they're your war ribbons, or but some are. I've worked hard to get a few of them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I
What's the
wear
one you're most proud of before we go off the air here?
I would probably say this one here,
Okay.
the brown and the black one. 2006, I was selected by my peers as the Deputy of the Year for our office. So that's what that one's for.
Okay.
So
Well, that's pretty neat.
it's pretty good. Safe Driving Award.
Okay.
I have, yet to damage any cruisers up.
That's helpful. That's helpful.
As far as, my fault, but
Well, hey, we're just about out of time, and the clock on the wall is ticking away. We're down to the last minute of the program. We're going to have you back next week, talk about SWAT, talk about in-service training. And again, I appreciate the students here at Fairfield Christian Academy, our executive producer, Kelly Roberts, and certainly you, the viewers and listeners that join us each and every week. If you have any questions, feel free to call me in the office or get a hold of us on our website. It's www.sheriff.fairfield.oh.us. And again, you have a link to that too, right?
I do. I didn't want to interrupt you there, but by all means, if somebody needs to get a hold of me as far as a warrant or if you have a case, I have a link to our website. Feel free to contact me, and I promise you I will respond to you.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out, and we look forward to next week's program. Well, until next week, same time, same place. If you're driving, make sure you buckle up, be careful. God bless, and we'll see you right here next week.